Hello, people. Alright, information showing the corner, whatever. So there was a horrific crash in East Bridgewater. There's 5 students. They went to, Stoughton High School. 4 dead. 3 were killed instantly. 1 died upon arrival at the hospital. And guess who survived? The driver. Sorry, but it was a Saturday night, and the driver plowed into a tree. So, yeah, it's a tragedy, and I'm sorry, and it sucks. But it's very likely, not 100% guaranteed, but very likely, and you know it, that either speed, impaired driving, as in under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or both, are what caused this deadly crash. They're not releasing the name of the driver. And the thing is, I guess they were all star athletes at that high school. They had their whole lives ahead of them, but I've said it before out here, teenagers, a lot of times they think they're invincible. Not just teenagers, but again, if you go and look at one of the articles online, which I did do, a witness was describing how, I guess he saw the car like fly through the air, which means teenagers thinking they're invincible. And if that teenage driver whose name they're not releasing, was under the influence or was speeding or whatnot, he or she, but I think it's a he, is responsible for the death of 4 of his friends. That's even more tragic. You know what I mean? If it was the result of, I'm sorry, but you guys know most of the time, 99.9999% of the time, unless it's a medical emergency, they're looking at weather too. They don't dare even say on the news, they won't say, even in the articles, something to do with impaired driving like alcohol or drugs, but maybe they're doing that out of respect for the dead, but you know what? There's a high likelihood that that's what caused this crash. They're like looking at the weather. There was no bad weather last night here in Massachusetts, there was no bad weather. You know what I mean? There was no bad weather. We weren't having bad weather. I don't think we're having bad weather anywhere in Massachusetts. Okay? So saying the weather is like, what you're not saying is, but I doubt I'm the only one suspecting that it might not be alcohol or drugs, it could be just speeding. But again, when you speed like that you crash into a tree and kill 4 of your friends, it's because you're thinking you're invincible. Now we know, we give the benefit of the doubt, as I wrote online, we give the benefit of the doubt when it's of a crash involving other vehicles, okay? This is not involving any other vehicle. When a vehicle crashes into an inanimate object, like a tree or a guardrail or goes over a path, you know what I mean? If it's not a medical emergency, then it has to involve speed, as in excessive speed, impaired driving, like under the influence of drugs or alcohol or both or whatever, or it has to involve one of those, because you don't just plow into a tree for no reason. You know what I mean? So my mom's like, that's really sad. I said, yeah, but if they were all partying, these star athletes at that high school, even if only one of them was driving, it could have been any one of them driving. I mean, I don't know what they're going to find out. But I'm just saying that I'm going to feel worse Not that I don't feel bad for them, but I'm going to feel worse for, like, the victims of the school shooting who are just innocent there and have to get gunned down at school, you know, than I will for if, I mean, to me this is looking like, it's likely that it was, you know, teenagers having a good time but falsely believing they're invincible. A guy was even saying in the article, I think he's the one who said he said he'd never seen anything like it, the car flying. It happened at night, but it flying through the air or whatever into that tree. And he's like, that's why I tell my granddaughter don't speed or whatever, but we don't know if, you know, if the driver was under the influence or not. I'm sorry if it's not politically correct to say that. I'm not saying that's necessarily what happened. Nowadays you don't know what's happening. Nowadays you don't know if someone suddenly had a desire to die and take 4 of his friends with. I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't believe that, of course. But how interesting. It's so interesting when it's the driver that lives. It's not the first time this has happened. You know, I think even my mom said that happens a lot. The driver survives and kills the passengers. So in a case like this, where it's clear that there's no other vehicle involved or whatnot, then the driver is going to be responsible. I mean, held responsible for, what, involuntary manslaughter, because you didn't do it on purpose. But then if you were under the influence, that's a whole other ball game. So I don't know. It's just sad. It's all sad. I mean, it's just, you know. And my Joe would be like, oh yeah, Laura, that's sad, but you know, millions, not millions, but hundreds of people, you know, die every day in the countries. Like, I know. We don't look at the world like that. We look at it, that's their life, you know. Their life in those countries, that when they're impoverished or whatnot, it's just people constantly dying of disease, whatever, being malnourished. So, hi my love, your mama's love, huh? That's that piece of gunk here, or is it a thing on your lip? Look, let me look. Look. It's okay. Just look. Is it a thing or is it? Alright, never mind. Never mind, Omar. I'm saying this now because if it turns out that I was right, you know, they mark my words. If it wasn't impaired driving, it was excessive speed, you know. And now that teenager has to live with he caused the death of 4 of his friends. If that's indeed what happened, and it's likely because, you know, what else happened, you know. People say, you should wait till all the facts come out before you start guessing. Yeah. It's just like the lawyer for that kid, and I can call him a kid. He is a kid, but he's a stone cold killer. And my mom brought it up before I even I was thinking about it. She's like, because I told her that he wanted to commit suicide and didn't lack the courage. Didn't lack the courage to just methodically, in his own words, killed people he didn't like and spared those he did like, playing God. It wasn't even random. Usually the school shootings, a lot of times, he said it, and he lacked the courage to kill himself. And my mom was like, it's Texas. He's going to die anyway. And the governor even said, I hope he gets swift Texas justice. And then the mama of one of the girls who was murdered by him was saying, you know, that her daughter was probably targeted because she turned down the killer's advances. And my mom was like, she's beautiful. Yeah, she is. She's dead, you know. But she looks beautiful in that picture anyway. Giant eyes and full lips. I was like, she's beautiful. Yeah, Mom, you should be saying she was beautiful. And then his lawyer, the killer's lawyer, I go back to the same thing I was talking about in the other video, you know, defense lawyers of just, how do they do it, you know? But that Nicholas Cruz, his lawyer called him a broken child. I heard her. So, will you get over here? You're not going out there. No. Anyway. Not that we're playing who has the bigger excuse, but Nicholas Cruz at least he lost his dad young, and he just 3 months prior to the killing lost his mother. She died of flu complications. This kid, what's the deal? Does he have siblings? I've seen movies where, I mean, they're saying online that the parents, there were no warning signs. The parents are just as shocked. But if you look hard enough, there are always warning signs. It's not normal to wear a trench coat to school every single day, even in 90-degree weather. One of his classmates pointed out, the news asked, and he said, did he wear it all the time? Because they're likening it to, there's similarities to the Columbine of long ago, because they wore trench coats. I remember that. And also they did makeshift explosives, as he did. They just didn't detonate. So he's trying to up his game. He's worse than even, in that respect, worse than even the other school shooters. He's trying to up his game by not just having 2 guns, but bringing explosives. And I've seen movies. One was so good because the father was in denial, and you don't find out to the end. You think that his son was just a victim of the school shooting that killed a lot of people. But you find out in the end it was his son that did it. And he loves his son as much as any of those parents. He pointed out, and it turned out because he started playing his son's music, and this was a college kid, and he didn't know why his son did it. You don't know. And I saw another movie like that too, where the parents are like ostracized and blamed and whatnot, and we get their perspective because they talk to each other, and they don't understand why their kid did what he did in the movie. And the same with this father. He and his wife wind up, they get divorced, and he takes his son's music, and he wants to feel closer to his son, so he starts playing the music, and it gets really popular. He finds a band to play it, but in the end, your past catches up with you, and the girl that was the girlfriend finds him somehow, and she's like, how could you play his music? He killed all those people. And you find out that the son, for all through the movie, it's such a good movie, I forget what it's called, but all through the movie, you think his son was just a victim of the school shooting, because you know his son's dead. You think he was a victim of the shooting, because it talks about the shooting, but it never addresses the fact that his son was the killer, and he has to live with that. But he can't be playing, and in the end he apologizes, and he says to the audience, he's like, this is my son. He's like, my son, he finally acknowledges the truth. He gunned down like 17 people in school, whatever. But he says, you know, he was my son. I love him, you know, because the fact is, the parents of these killers, they love their kids the same as, you know, in this case he died. He killed himself after killing everyone else, which is what this recent guy was supposed to do, was meant to do, was said he wanted to do, and didn't do it. So now he's on suicide watch. But you have to address that. That's why they do movies sometimes about it. You know, it's like the parents of these mass shooters are not necessarily, you know, in any way to blame or responsible, or, you know, I'm sure maybe sometimes they are. I don't know. I do know I heard hints of this other school shooting that was thwarted because the officer on duty at the school, whatever, he stopped. That was somewhere else, I forget where it was, but they were saying something. I remember the news about the parents might be held responsible because the kid got the guns from the parents. In this case, the same thing. I mean, unless he smashed open where the guns were, then you didn't hide your keys very well, parents. Oh, and then I forgot that Waffle House thing. 4 killed, right? That parent, we haven't heard anything now, but he's definitely should be held partially responsible. He was not supposed to give the gun to that guy. He's not a kid, but he wasn't supposed to give the gun to his son. The police had taken it away. It's against the law to give a gun to someone you know is not supposed to have one. We haven't heard anything about that, though, because everything usurps everything else, you know, or something new in the news, and the old stuff gets swept away, you know, swept under the rug or whatever. Forget about it. Oh, I think in Newton, my mom said Newton is ritzy. I wouldn't know. I think it's in Newton. I said, are you sure that it's ritzy? She said, yeah, whatever. They were about to sell their house for $800,000.